Why is it that Doug Ford seems to have a proven pattern of doing everything in his power to sabotage Canada-US relations? Whether it be taking American alcohol off of the shelves or even threatening to cut off their electricity, this is a pattern that we've seen over and over again. And now he's using taxpayer dollars to take out ads in the United States, basically amounting to foreign interference, where he takes Ronald Reagan wildly out of context in an attempt to hit back against Donald Trump's tariff policies. Could another election be around the corner? Must be, because they seem to be drumming up the division and trying to distract you from the real issues. So let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. And if you're new here, make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, drop a comment down below, but most importantly, share this one out, because we very well may be heading into another election very soon. And I am encouraged that more and more Canadians seem to be waking up to the chaos caused by the corporate media and the liberal establishment. I'm worried it's not going quick enough, because if we're not careful, everybody is going to get fooled once again. Now this one from the National Roast. Elbows assemble. Are you ready for another election? Mark Carney is back with his anti-American fear rhetoric because he is nervous the budget may force another election. It worked before, and it may again. Anybody paying the slightest bit of attention to the situation knows this to be true. During our last election, Carney relentlessly campaigned on the narrative that Canada is in the worst crisis of our lifetimes. And even Joe Rogan is noticing this and calling it out.
All we did was differ with them economically, and Trump tried to turn them into a state. He said, I called him Governor Trudeau. First I was just joking, then a lot of people told me it was a good idea. Yeah, I think that single-handedly ruined Canada.
Yeah.
That idea, I mean, that's the Republican Party, or their version of the Conservative Party. They were on the way out. They were fucked.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, the whole country united because Trump's trying to turn them into a state.
Yeah. Poilievre has got to be angry about that shit, man.
He has to be so mad. He was logical and reasonable, and everybody's like, let's try that for a while.
Yeah.
Do you know what? That was the ultimate cock block.
Yeah, right.
Do you know what I mean? You're in the bar. It's about to happen with the girl.
It's going down.
It's going down. You're like, oh, I'm so
Canada's back.
Yeah, I'm so gonna get laid. Trump pops up, whispers something in her ear, and all of a sudden it's fucking over.
Yeah.
Now, I'm pretty confident that Joe Rogan doesn't spend much time at all thinking about Canadian politics, yet even he can see how badly Canadians were played in the last election. Now, you guys might recall that as soon as Carney got in there, the narrative started to flip. All of a sudden, we were told not to worry so much about tariffs because of the USMCA. Now, this is the pivotal deal that we have to renegotiate before it expires in the spring. We were starting to see articles about how we have the best deal in the world, thanks to the USMCA. And even stuff like this from CBC. We will get an even better deal, Carney says, after Oval Office meeting with Trump. This, of course, follows the meeting between Donald Trump and Mark Carney earlier this month, where Carney shows up in Washington, D.C., and the very first thing he says when he sees the president is that he wore a red tie for him. How embarrassing. He then goes on to compliment Donald Trump's, quote, transformative leadership. And then, all of a sudden, yesterday, the narrative flips back to the elbows up campaign again. Mark Carney admits broader trade deal with Donald Trump won't happen anytime soon. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I find it very interesting that while Mark Carney is suddenly doing yet another about-face on our trade relationship with the United States, Doug Ford goes ahead and he does this.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs and growth are at stake.
Can you imagine the reaction from the average Canadian if the Trump administration pulled this stunt on Canada, or any other country for that matter? I mean, imagine if the Communist Party of China took out ads criticizing Canadian domestic policy. You would be rightly outraged. This is definitely foreign interference, and the reaction from the Trump administration is not unexpected. Now, Trump posted this one on Truth Social last night. The Ronald Reagan Foundation has just announced that Canada has fraudulently used an advertisement, which is fake, featuring Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs. The ad was for $75,000. They only did this to interfere with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court and other courts. Tariffs are very important to the national security and economy of the USA. Based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Now, at the risk of disappointing the Trump savior syndrome crowd, I have to point out that he's definitely wrong about one thing. The ad isn't fake. Far from it. Ronald Reagan really did say those things. However, it's missing some key context, and a very important part of that speech is left out. Ronald Reagan was definitely opposed to protectionist policies like Donald Trump's tariffs, and if he were alive today, I suspect he would be among some of the Republicans that are opposed to what Trump is doing. Now, this tweet from Newsmax breaks it down very well. Ronald Reagan imposed 100% tariffs on Japanese electronics in 1987, aimed at protecting U.S. jobs amidst trade tensions. Newsmax chief White House correspondent James Rosen takes a deeper look at Reaganomics tariffs.
On March 27, 1987, the day this video was taken, President Reagan imposed 100% tariffs on a wide array of electronic goods produced in Japan, worth $300 million annually, roughly $9 billion in current figures.
This thing was a violation of an agreement signed 7 months ago in which we found there was a market denied to our chips, our microchips, in their country at the same time that they were dumping, not only here but in other countries, their microchips.
An avid free trader, Reagan said he was loath to use protectionist tools.
I didn't want to impose punitive tariffs on Japanese goods. I don't believe in tariffs or trade barriers or restrictions of any kind.
In his weekly radio address, the chief executive again emphasized why he favored only limited use of the tariff power.
High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. The result is more and more tariffs, higher and higher trade barriers, and less competition. So soon, because of the prices made artificially high by tariffs that subsidize inefficiency and poor management, people stop buying. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs.
Many things he did have to be judged in the shadow of the Cold War.
Craig Shirley is a presidential historian and the author of 5 books about Ronald Reagan.
There were some times where he felt that it was necessary in order to save U.S. jobs to impose these tariffs. He did it sparingly, but he did do it.
Indeed, on the European Economic Community, the precursor to the EU, Reagan imposed tariffs at least 3 times. And in his first term, to protect the Harley-Davidson Company, he placed heavy tariffs on imported motorcycles.
It did help save the Harley-Davidson Corporation and save a lot of jobs. So they've always credited Reagan with saving Harley-Davidson.
By the fall of 1987, Tokyo having opened up more of her markets, President Reagan lifted nearly half the tariffs he'd imposed on Japan that spring. The rest remained in place until he left office. Reagan's vice president and successor, George H.W. Bush, quietly lifted the remainder in 1991. And the following year, foreign market share in Japan achieved the desired level of 20%. At the White House, James Rosen, Newsmax.
So Doug Ford has wasted taxpayer dollars on a very dishonest ad campaign, and you have to wonder if this is being done intentionally. Gov.exe is corrupt put this clip out there. Doug Ford said his $75 million ad campaign using Ronald Reagan's voice will not stop because it is one of the best ads he's ever seen. Either these people have no clue how to negotiate a deal, or they're sabotaging it on purpose.
I heard that the president heard our ad. I'm sure he wasn't too happy, but it's real because it was coming from the best president the country's ever seen, Ronald Reagan. So It is. It's very effective. It's probably one of the best ads I've ever seen, and it's coming from Ronald Reagan's voice, and it's going to be focused on right across the country, but also in Republican-held areas, because what I feel, the Reagan Republicans are going to be fighting with a MAGA group. And let's hope Reagan Republicans.
Now, Doug Ford just said with a straight face that Ronald Reagan is one of the best presidents ever. Now, this to me is just laughable, and it really exposes the mindset of the quote-unquote progressive conservative. They really don't understand anything, do they? In my opinion, Ronald Reagan was one of the most corrupt presidents ever. Let's not forget the Iran-Contra scandal, or the fact that under his administration and George Bush Sr., the CIA was flooding the streets of America with drugs while simultaneously fighting a war on drugs and using it as a pretext to crack down on their political opposition. Not very progressive, is it? But anyways, I do digress. What is this really all about? Well, in my opinion at least, it all relates to this. Will Carney's budget trigger election? Liberals say that's up to the opposition. Opposition parties are being, quote, cavalier about the possibility of triggering another federal election, says Liberal House Leader Stephen McKinnon, something he believes Canadians do not want. McKinnon made the comments Wednesday as opposition parties publicly laid out their demands for the upcoming federal budget, as well as their various red lines for supporting it. The minority Liberals need at least 3 additional votes to pass the budget, which is treated as a confidence vote. If it fails, the Parliament will be dissolved and a new election will be triggered, just over 6 months after the last one. We have a minority Parliament, but we do believe we have a mandate, McKinnon told reporters. If things were going well in Canada, they absolutely would not have a mandate to get this budget passed. Not by a long shot. Let's not forget that Carney is projected to balloon the national debt way past the levels that it was at under Justin Trudeau. And you can see what they're doing here, right? The article goes on to say, if there has to be an election, we will confidently take our plan to the people, but we don't think an election is necessary, and we think the opposition parties are, in my view, being very, very cavalier about the country's future. Without this manufactured crisis, there wouldn't really be any political risk to vote against this. Now, they're trying to paint the opposition as being very cavalier by not blindly supporting this destructive budget. So let's take a look at Pierre Poilievre and see who's being cavalier. Mark Carney told a room full of students yesterday that they will have to sacrifice. Liberals have already forced this generation of youth to sacrifice home ownership, jobs, and the ability to start a family. What else should our youth be expected to sacrifice for this reckless, costly government? And here it is from CBC News. Carney says Canada should prepare for sacrifices as he outlines plan for budget. So all in all, who knows what's going to happen in November when they have to vote on Mark Carney's budget? I think I can say with confidence that the Conservatives are going to end up voting against it. So the country's future is going to stand on the shoulders of the NDP and the Bloc. And that's a pretty scary prospect. But that's going to be my show for today, guys. Let me know what you think down in the comments. And as always, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that good stuff. And I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Peace.
Johnny from Nova Scotia says thank you. Hey, Johnny from Nouvelle-Écosse, il dit merci, thank you.
Thanks to you.
Thank you so much. Perfect.
We're from Quebec.
Yeah, Quebec.